A young woman, pregnant, in terrible pain, neglected. Her husband and his father equally reluctant to attend to her. If one goes, the other will eat the potato, the logic of poverty.
ये आलू बहुत गर्म है, मालूम होता है बचेगी नहीं, दिन भर हो गया तड़पते हुए। जाके देख तो आप अपनी जनानी को। मुझसे अब उसकी परेशानी देखी नहीं जाती, मरना है तो मर क्यों नहीं जाती जल्दी। तू बड़ा बेदर्द है बे।
The young woman dies. Father and son go to the landowner, their immediate feudal lord. They beg for money for a shroud, for funeral expenses.
अब आपकी देह होगी तो उसकी मिट्टी उठेगी सरकार। सरकार मैं और किस खेतवार पर जाऊंगा।
They drink away the funeral money, indulge in maudlin philosophizing about death. Their thirst is far more important than death. This, after all, is life.
कफन का क्या है, वो तो जली जाता, बहू के साथ तो जाता नहीं। और जो दादा उन्होंने पूछा कि कफन कहाँ है, तो कह देंगे आंटी से पैसे खिसक गए, बहुत ढूंढा नहीं मिला। भाई अच्छी सी बेचारी, मरे भी तो खूब खिला पिला कर। और दादा, हम लोग भी तो एक दिन मर के ऊपर जाएंगे, तब। और जो उसने हमसे पूछी कि कफन क्यों नहीं दिया, तो क्या कहोगे? क्यों खाम खा परेशान हो रहा है, उसे कफन मिलेगा। कौन देगा? वही लोग देंगे जिन्होंने अब कह दिया है। और रुपए हमारे हाथ में नहीं आएंगे। सुन, अगर वो रुपए हमारे हाथ में आ जाएं, तो फिर दादा, तो फिर तीसरी बार कफन मिलेगा।
The writer of this short story is not unsympathetic towards his characters. He wants us to see the brutishness of the feudal system which produces such grotesque tragedy. This short story, Coffin, The Shroud, was written by a man who awakened social awareness from a long sleep. He awakened dormant literary aspirations. He was a great writer. Premchand. This is the village of Lamai near Banaras. It was here that Premchand was born on the 31st of July, 1880. The focal point of all Premchand's writings is the village, the laughter and the turbulence beyond the peaceful facade. What makes a genius? An exceptional power of observation, an ear for dialect and surrounding sound, does the eye or the mind of the child unconsciously absorb what the writer in a future time will consciously shape into powerful prose? There is a mystery here. All we know is that Premchand went to a village school where he had a rudimentary education. His name was Dhanpat Rai Srivastav, but he was fondly called Nawab by his family.
बेटा महाराणा प्रताप बहुत वीर राजा थे, हैं? वो कंदराओं में.
We know from Premchand's reminiscences that the village postman, Kazaki, was a fascinating storyteller to whom he was very attached.
वो मुगलों के सामने नहीं झुके बेटा, हैं? तब उन्होंने अपने मंत्री को बुला के, अपने सेनानियों को बुला के, फिर हमला किया और अपना सारा देश वापस कर लिया.
While he listened to accounts of war and bravery, the young boy wondered what history had to do with his village, with his people. Premchand was 8 years old when his mother died. Premchand's father, Ajay Lal, was the village postmaster, a sincere, honest and religious man. Soon after the death of his first wife, he married again. Stepmother was somewhat quarrelsome.
नवाब, लिखत हुआ बचवा, लिखत.
Don't worry, my boy. Keep writing. The encouragement given him by his friends led Premchand to continue writing and to hide his little writings under a pillow as though they were secret treasures. These, of course, the world was to discover much, much later. At the age of 15, a marriage was arranged. The bringing together of two young strangers can be both an adventure and a disaster. Premchand's father was deeply disturbed at the incompatibility of the young couple.
सुनत हो, हम बहुत दुखी है, बहुत दुखी. हम अपने गुलाब जैसा बचवा को दूसर बियाह रचाए के सोचत है. तुहार का विचारो दुल्हन? जानत है तू को जो सोचत हो, लेकिन हमार दुख बढ़त जात हो दुल्हन.
For a long time, Premchand was silent, confused, stricken by conscience. Premchand's father died. Premchand was now the only possible breadwinner. He walked barefoot to the houses of parents who could pay him to teach their children. All this to support his education at Queen's College. He went to Banaras. Off a narrow street, in a small room, he read the Vedas and Tolstoy, Tagore and Dickens, idealism and reality. Readers, and indeed writers, have often wondered at the evocative and living dialogue that Premchand wrote.
ये देख, चावल भी नहीं, चावलो नहीं भी नहीं आवला। खाए के चाहे चिकन, अब पहले के चाहे महीन।
His wife and his stepmother frequently quarreled. The apparently trivial subject of the argument and the nature of its expression was vividly recorded in his mind. The human condition was fascinating even in its smallest aspect. He once picked up a book on mathematics and went to sell it. He needed the money. There was a kind teacher at the bookseller's shop. He heard vaguely of the offer to be a schoolmaster. In a state of near entrancement, he ran towards knowledge and experience.
गोड़े से लंगड़ी, सकल में ऐसन भद्दी, हमार तो भागे है फूट गई। हम तो ये सोचले है देखा कि हम अपन बेटवा के दूसर बिया करब।
ठीक है तो तू करवा अपने बेटवा के दूसर बिया, हम उतार पिंड छोड़ दे।
Great tragedy can lead to catharsis. But what of daily life? Is there no tragedy in a quarrel between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law? Are there not social influences, traditions, which create entirely unnecessary conflicts?
मेरी जीप में आग लगी, न जाने कहां से झगड़ा मैंने खड़ा कर दिया। कहीं ऐसा न हो कि चल दें।
भाभी, भैया को मेरा प्रणाम करना।
अरे कहां चल दिए? मैं तुम्हें जाने नहीं दूंगी।
Premchand writes a story of a wife who creates friction between two brothers. The younger brother, out of affection and respect for his brother and his sister-in-law, decides to leave home. Peace at any cost. But it is the woman who brings the brothers together, a realization of the togetherness of a family. Suddenly, a difficult woman becomes a heroine. For those who think of Premchand as a somewhat grim writer, it is recorded that when he laughed, even the cobwebs in dead houses quivered. His friends found him a humorous and compassionate inspector of schools. Premchand married again. When he married Shivrani, a child widow, the orthodox were outraged. But Premchand looked quietly out of his glasses and ignored them. His vision was different. His life now became not sedate, but if possible even more active. The short story opened out into the vast unknown of the novel. He gave up writing in the Urdu or Persian script. He wanted to reach a bigger audience and began to write in Hindi. Nawab Rai finally became Premchand. Why are we so indignant when untouchables are thrown out of temples? Where were our parents and our grandparents and our leaders when Premchand spoke out 50 years ago? Premchand left government service and returned to Limai. The way of life seemed to be the same as in his childhood. But now he saw reality in a different way. The loss of innocence, perhaps. The price one pays for maturity. Hira Moti, a pair of bullocks, immortalized in their hopes and aspirations, wondering at the love and the infidelity of men. And what of the women? The mothers, wives, daughters, sisters? Did the feudal system think of bonded labor as human beings? It has been said that men are cowards in the face of feudal authority, not because they fear for themselves, but because the landowner attacks the entire family, the community. People do not necessarily submit out of cowardice, but out of helplessness.
कौनो साल बाढ़, कौनो साल सूखा, और जोन कुछ बचला भाई, वो जमींदार साहब उठा ले जाले। अब तो किसानी में भाई कुछ ना धरा। नहीं भैया ऐसा बात नहीं।
For Premchand,
किसान किसान
the world was a village of human emotion. His anger was anger against injustice. As a writer, Premchand knew he could not change the world, let alone entirely change a village. But he could make people think and feel. Before he died at the age of 56, in 1936, Premchand wrote his best-loved novel, Godan.
होरी महतो क्या 3 साल का लगान बकाया अभी तक चल रहा है। मुनीब जी, होरी के खेत से वसूल कर लो। जो आज्ञा हुजूर। अबे जरा ठीक से।
In despite of his developing illness and financial difficulties, he continued to love his characters. He never condemned weakness, he understood it. The feudal lord can persecute Hori. Hori is the protagonist or anti-hero of Premchand's novel Godan. The moneylender has sucked the life out of him. From a proud kisan, a farmer with his own, very own 2 acres of land, he has been reduced to being a laborer for daily wages. Hori is the classical victim of feudal cruelty. Hori had promised the Brahmins a cow in return for all the rituals of death and the hereafter, Godan. Hori dies, thinking not of his family, but of shame, because he has not lived up to the tradition of his forefathers.
मैं मंगल के लिए गाँव नहीं खरीद सका रे। किसान से मजदूर हो गया, लेकिन गाय नहीं खरीद सका। दादाजी बोली बंधु में गोदान करा दे भौजी। दुनिया माँ तो अपना बचिया गोदान करा दे जल्दी।
घर में नहीं गाय है नहीं बचिया। आज सुतरी बेचकर पीसाना पैसे ले आयो महाराज। यही इनकी गोदान है महाराज। यही इनकी
Hori's bones burn, his muscles and ligaments burn, his heart burns. Perhaps here burns the soul of Premchand.